Throughout the first 3 parts of JoJo, there are many antagonists trying to stop the Joestars in their tracks. However, there is one antagonist which is much more important than all of these antagonists combined. And without it, we wouldn't have JoJo like it is today. The antagonist, or rather antagonizing force I'm talking about, is of course the Stone Mask. If you didn't get that, then you might want to look at the title of the video again. The Stone Mask holds the secrets of unlocking the terrifying abilities of vampirism. But who created it, and what exactly are vampires? Well, let's get into it. The Stone Mask has the ability to awaken vampiric abilities in any human. The way these abilities are awakened is by first putting the Stone Mask on your face, like a mask, and then letting blood come into contact with the front of the mask. With how much JoJo prioritizes family bonds and family ties, during my first watch I originally thought the Stone Mask could only be activated by the blood of a Joestar or a Brando. However, this is not the case at all, and the mask can be activated by the blood of any human. Once the Stone Mask is activated, several bone-like hooks shoot out in unison and pierce the user's skull and insert into their brain. The way these bones pierce the brain somehow awakens vampiric abilities in the user. Vampires in JoJo are very similar to the vampires we see in other media. They have fangs, eternally young bodies, are weak to sunlight, and can walk on walls. However, JoJo's vampires also have some very important and noticeable differences. The vampires in JoJo don't suck blood through their fangs, but instead their fingers, which honestly seems like a much more convenient way of sucking blood. The vampires in JoJo are incapable of transforming their bodies into other animals such as bats. However, they do have a limited amount of control in their own body, allowing them to do such feats as freeze others simply by dropping their own body heat. They do also have the ability to graft body parts of different organisms together, with Dio's weird animal chimera things, and eventually himself when he grafts his own head onto the body of Jonathan Joestar. One of the most common traits of a vampire is that it has no reflection. However, in the 17th chapter of Stardust Crusaders, we see Dio standing in front of a mirror, very clearly showing a reflection. Vampires in other media are frequently seen as genetic. If a vampire has a child, the child will also be a vampire or half vampire. However, this is clearly not the case in JoJo, as all of Dio's children show no signs of being vampires. Also, it is unclear whether JoJo's vampires have their traditional weakness of garlic. However, we do know that they do not possess the weakness of crosses. And if that were the case, then that would make Dio and Poochie's hangouts a little harder to pull off. The very first chapter of Phantom Blood doesn't begin the same way as the anime. Instead of the famous horse carriage crash, the manga begins with a woman tied to a stone tablet, only to be stabbed and murdered by a man wearing a stone mask, who uses the blood of the sacrificed woman to become a vampire. He then walks over to a loyal servant and drinks his blood. The crowd around this man then chants "Chief" as we fade into the real story. This cult was a part of the Aztecs from the 12th to 16th century, located in central Mexico. They were going to use the power of the Stone Mask to conquer the world. However, in the 16th century, they completely disappeared from history. This struck me as odd when I first read it, and still does now. How does an entire tribe of people who have been established for multiple centuries just completely disappear from history with no explanation? I have a couple of theories though. Maybe when Christopher Columbus sailed across the ocean, he brought a bunch of Ripple warriors with him, and they took out the vampire cult. Maybe Christopher Columbus himself was a Ripple warrior. I'm getting off topic. Maybe they all just evaporated in the sun. That seems unlikely though, because if you see one of your friends disintegrate into the sun, then maybe you might think not to step into the sun yourself. Especially if you see like 30 of your friends disintegrate into the sun. I don't know. I guess that's why they mysteriously disappeared. I'm really sad that the scene was omitted from the anime, as it gets us wondering about this stone mask and makes it much more impactful when we see it in the hands of George Joestar just a couple minutes later. When I first began reading JoJo, I suspected that the old vampire tribe likely created the stone mask. However, thanks to part 2, we now know who actually created the stone mask. Yeah, there's more than one. The creator of the stone masks is the pillar man known as Kars. Kars likely discovered how to make the mask by shoving sticks or bones into select sections of a human's brain to awaken vampiric abilities. The stone mask was just created as a way to automate this process and make it have a much higher chance of success. As was previously stated, the stone mask was created by Kars, and it disappeared alongside him. However, it was somehow found and resurfaced in the 12th century, when the Aztecs found and used it until the 16th century, when they all mysteriously disappeared. Then the stone mask once again resurfaced when Will Zeppeli's father's team of archaeologists discovered it in Aztec ruins around 1858. Then 10 years after the mask was used by Zeppeli's father, it found its way to London, where Mary Joestar would purchase it for her husband, George Joestar, who would then hang it on the wall of the Joestar mansion. This would then lead to Dio using the mask in 1880, but shortly after, when he was defeated, the stone mask would be destroyed by a swift blow of a sledgehammer from Speedwagon. The stone mask is the most common and probably the safest way to become a vampire. However, it's not the only way. One can also become a vampire by receiving blood gifted to them by another vampire, like what Dio does to Vanilla Ice and Stardust Crusaders. Becoming a vampire in this way doesn't seem to have any differences from using the stone mask, as Vanilla Ice appears to have all of the abilities every other vampire possesses. When Dio transforms Vanilla Ice, he has him killed first. However, killing a human does not make them turn into a vampire. That will turn them into a zombie, which are similar to vampires, but in fact are entirely different entities. I had a lot of topics about vampires I wanted to talk about, but wouldn't be long enough to make into their own videos. So this video is kind of just a bunch of different topics mushed together, united by an overarching theme, and I think that kind of works. So let me know if you would like to see more videos where I take a bunch of different topics relating to one theme, and just mush them together into one big video. Anyways, see ya. I need some water. I'm taking a Dayquil before work today, holy shit. Oh my god.